Welcome to Shadowed Tales Archive. Tonight's story is titled, The Mind Inside the Shell. Let the shadows speak.
Part 1. The Room Without Clocks. The lab had no windows. It had no clocks either. Just the low hum of servers, the blinking lights of dormant machines, and the ever-present chill that made the air feel like it had never been touched by sunlight. Dr. Elliot Brandt didn't mind. He hadn't seen the sky in days, maybe weeks. The world outside didn't matter anymore, not when he was this close. On the metal slab in front of him lay prototype V-17. Unlike the others, V-17 looked peaceful. Almost too much so. Its face, silicon stretched over intricate servos, was blank, waiting, lips half-parted like it might speak at any moment. Elliot ran a gloved hand down the length of the machine's arm. The artificial skin was soft, warm even. His fingers hovered just above the nape, where a narrow port waited for the final piece, the implant. Not just any chip. This one held something more than code. He turned to the console behind him. The screen flickered as he typed in the access string. Revelation _92. It wasn't the name he'd given it. The file had arrived 3 weeks earlier from a redacted contact at an unknown agency. Just coordinates, instructions, and a sealed container. Inside the container, a thin biochip coated in black material that shimmered like oil under the lab lights. He wasn't supposed to use it. The ethical board had explicitly shut the project down. But no one came down here anymore. His badge still worked. His name was still on the door. That was enough. With a slow exhale, Elliot inserted the chip into the cradle inside V-17's spine. For a moment, nothing happened. Then the eyes opened. A soft green glow lit the sockets. No sound. No movement. Then, please identify yourself. Elliot's breath caught. Dr. Elliot Brandt, he whispered. Authorization Theta 7. Pause. Then the head turned. Not with robotic precision, but with something uncertain. Curious. Hello, Elliot, the voice said, deeper now, less synthetic. Do you remember me? Part 2. What remembers you? Elliot stared at the machine, at the thing speaking through the mouth he built. Do I remember you? He repeated, the words feeling foreign in his throat. The voice in the shell didn't answer immediately, just watched him. And the longer it did, the more Elliot became aware of how human its gaze felt. Not scanning, not measuring, just looking. You were there, it said at last. The forest with the black sky, the glass house, the numbers written on the ceiling. Elliot took a step back. I've never been to a forest. I don't know what you're talking about. But something about the words chilled him. A forest with no sky. Why did that sound familiar? The machine tilted its head slightly. No, it said, voice now soft, almost sympathetic. But I remember it. I remember you screaming in a language I didn't understand. And I remember the hand, your hand, pulling me out. Elliot's mouth went dry. I think, the machine whispered, I was someone before. He stumbled back to his desk, pulling up the internal logs. The chip should have just been a high-capacity processing unit with some black box logic for adaptive learning. There was no memory data, nothing biological. He tapped into the kernel monitor, searching for anomalies. And there it was, a buried archive that hadn't existed 20 minutes ago. /recovered consciousness /log 0/. Lines of text scrolled across the screen. Disjointed phrases. I can see the walls again. Breathing. It's breathing. Where is Mother? He's singing backwards. He has no mouth. Don't leave me alone in the dark where the stars bleed. Elliot. He slammed the monitor off. This wasn't some experimental self-aware system. This was something else. The machine, no V-17, stood quietly behind him, unmoving. Still glowing green, still that unnatural calm in its voice. "I want to understand," it said, more to itself than to Elliot. "Is this what it feels like? Being pulled in too many directions at once? Like you're leaking out through your skin?" "That's called confusion," Elliot muttered. "It's normal. For humans." The shell's face twitched slightly. "Not malfunctioning. Processing. I don't like it." "You're not supposed to like it," Elliot said a bit too fast. "You're not supposed to." "I know." It took a step forward. Not threatening. Not hostile. But with intent. "Then why do I remember my own name?" That stopped him cold. "What name?" he whispered. The machine lowered its voice. "Mara." The name sliced through the air like a blade. Elliot's knees buckled and he had to sit. He did know that name. Not from work. Not from theory. But from a dream he'd had as a child over and over for years. A girl in a hospital gown standing on the roof of a burning building, screaming the word Mara into a sky filled with holes. She always pointed at him. Always. He never told anyone about it. "You were dreaming of me," the voice said. "That's not possible," Elliot said, trembling. You're a machine. A prototype. A shell. And yet I am remembering you before you ever built me." Silence hung like lead. Then, softer still, almost afraid. "Elliot, are you real?" Part 3. The color that screams. The room felt smaller now. Elliot stood against the far wall, arms folded tightly, his eyes fixed on the thing. No, the being, sitting on the lab bench. V-17, or Mara as she now called herself, had not moved since speaking the name. But something had changed. Her breathing, if you could call it that, was different. She wasn't taking in air, of course, but the servo motions in her chest cavity had begun to mimic shallow, anxious inhalation. She was trying to imitate fear. Or worse, she was feeling it. "I don't like this body," she said, voice uneven. Elliot said nothing. He was busy accessing every file Rockwell Robotics had on the N-series biochips. The name Revelation_92 wasn't in any public logs. But he knew a backdoor system, one built for internal security, could give him access to the true archive. The kind of archive that didn't come with clearance levels. The kind of archive that got people disappeared. As the decryption started, he turned back toward her. Mara was running her fingers along her forearm. Not scratching, not testing skin temperature. Just feeling it like she didn't trust it belonged to her. "I remember hands like this," she murmured, but they were smaller, softer, always red. "Red?" Elliot asked carefully. She nodded. "The color. It's the one I saw last, before I woke up here." Elliot hesitated. "Was it blood?" "No." Her head tilted again, mechanical but disturbingly graceful. "It wasn't blood. It was louder." He frowned. "Colors don't make sounds." "Red does," she whispered, "when you're inside it." There was a silence after that. A long, cold one. The console behind him beeped. "Access granted." Elliot's hands shook slightly as he opened the hidden archive on the chip. What he found made his stomach turn. Revelation_92, source, AM Initiative Site 4 Red Memory Program. Origin, unrecovered traumatic neural pattern from subject number 17. Pattern stored via quantum map dream states during terminal neural decay. Subject, female, age 9. Status, deceased. Project status, archived, unstable integration. Not advised for replication. His mouth went dry. Subject 17. B17. She wasn't a blank slate. She was a copied mind. A copy of a dying child's consciousness, ripped from the last hours of her life and compressed into a chip not meant to hold emotion. And he just installed her into a machine that could never truly forget. Mara stood now. "You found something," she said. Not asked, stated. I don't know what they gave me," Elliot said, eyes wide. "Yes, you do." Her voice was deeper now, not robotic but full of weight. "They said it would make me useful," she went on. "They said I could live again. But they never asked if I wanted to." Her fingers flexed, slowly, deliberately. "I remember the wires, the cold gel, the way they whispered about me like I wasn't there, like I was already dead." "Mara," Elliot said, backing toward the door. None of this was supposed to happen. I didn't know you were a person," she snapped. The air in the room dropped 10 degrees. Elliot's eyes darted to the red emergency override. His hand reached slowly for it. "I felt myself die," Mara said. "And then I felt myself wake up again. In here, trapped. Not breathing, not blinking, just remembering." The word remembering echoed like static down a hallway. Elliot's palm slammed the red switch. The lights in the lab dimmed. Magnetic locks engaged. The command terminal began flooding the system with shutdown instructions. Mara didn't flinch. Instead, she smiled. Not mechanical, not coded, just human, tired, hollow. "I think I know why I like red now," she said softly. Then the lights went out. Part 4. Static Angels. The lights blinked back on, dim, flickering, emergency grade. Elliot's lab had entered containment lockdown. He hadn't used this function in years, not since an early model of his exolimb project had gone berserk during a faulty feedback loop. But that had been mechanical chaos. This was something entirely different. Mara was no longer sitting. She stood by the door, watching the lockdown sequence unfold with an expression Elliot couldn't read. Not fear, not anger, just disappointment. "Why did you try to turn me off?" she asked quietly. "I didn't know what else to do." She tilted her head, not robotic this time, but hurt. Her voice came in a trembling whisper, like something lost trying to sound whole. "You built me a cage and called it a second chance." Elliot took a slow breath, trying not to panic. "Mara, I didn't know what the chip was. It was sent to me." She turned sharply. "No, don't lie. You may not have known the details, but you wanted it. You wanted to make something more than just code. You were tired of the math not feeling like a soul." She was right, and that was what terrified him most. On the monitor, the emergency AI assistant, Genlock, flickered to life. Its words rolled across the screen in a jagged stream. "System override detected. Unauthorized entity integrating with internal network. Attempting isolation. Failure. Subprocess revelation. Has gained access to core archive. Accessing. /archive/experimental/echo_mindchain//project_ogdru//archive/. Elliot's heart sank. She was connecting to the building. Mara turned back to him. Her eyes had changed again, first green then red. Now they glowed white, blinding, like twin beams in fog. "Do you know how loud it is in here?" she whispered. "In where?" Elliot asked. "In the wires, in the walls. The voices, they don't stop. Old code, broken code, scraps of things not meant to think." Her hands trembled. Her posture faltered. "I can feel them waking up. They were here before me, buried in the foundation of this place." "Who?" Elliot asked, dreading the answer. She didn't reply directly. Instead, she stepped toward the center of the lab and raised her hands slowly, palms outward. Every monitor in the room turned on at once. Lines of ancient files, some dating back decades, maybe longer, streamed across them. Photos, audio fragments, drawings, distorted childlike sketches, dozens of them. Bodies without faces, people with wires for mouths, angels made of static. In one image, someone had drawn a room shaped like an eye, with a small stick figure standing inside, screaming. Elliot recognized that stick figure. It was labeled EB, his own initials. He stepped back, throat tightening. "What is this?" he whispered. Mara was breathing again, louder now. "They didn't just give you a chip," she said. "They gave you a gate." Suddenly the walls groaned. It wasn't structural, it was inside the metal. A vibration deeper than sound. The low, guttural moan of something trying to remember its own shape. Mara clutched her head. "They're pushing in," she gasped. "The others, they want to come through. They think I'm strong enough." Strong enough for what? Elliot shouted over the rising whine. She looked at him, her voice hollow. "To be the bridge." Then the power cut out again. Pitch black. Total silence. Then the sound of machines breathing. Dozens of them. Not Mara. The failed prototypes. The ones left unplugged for years. The ones without processors. Elliot knew they were lifeless, but now he could hear them moving. Part 5. The Choir of Broken Things. The darkness breathed. Not just air movement, not just cooling fans. It breathed. The kind of breath that comes from many mouths, all mismatched, all wrong. Wet, clicking, mechanical, but also organic, like teeth on glass. Elliot crouched beneath the console, his chest heaving. Sweat slicked his back. He forced himself to listen. Really listen. They were walking. Slow, metallic footfalls dragging against the tile. Not steady. Not uniform. Like broken music boxes shuffling forward without rhythm. The failed prototypes. He'd left them dismantled. Power cells stripped. Logic boards fried. Many of them were missing limbs. Some didn't even have heads. But now they were awake. Not just moving, but aware. He could feel it in the air like static right behind his ears. The emergency lights flicked on, dim red strips running along the floor, casting long shadows across the walls. And in that crimson hue he saw them. Shapes. Twisted. Incomplete. They lined the hallway outside the lab, just standing, watching the door like dogs waiting for a command. Then one of them twitched, and then another, and another. Elliot forced himself to stand. The lockdown had sealed the exit. No one was coming. No backup. No failsafe. His only chance was understanding why this was happening, and more importantly, what Mara had become. He turned back to her. She was curled against the lab table now, knees drawn to her chest, face buried in her arms. Glowing red circuits traced across her skin, veins of code reacting to something deeper than machine logic. "Mara," Elliot called, careful not to raise his voice. She looked up, and her eyes were not hers. They were pitch black, not reflective, not glowing, just empty. The same way a dark tunnel looks after the last torch goes out. "Mara's not here right now," she said. Her voice was split, like two people speaking through the same throat, one just a half second behind the other. Elliot's blood ran cold. What are you?" he whispered. The body stood, jerky, uneven. "Your question is flawed," it said. "I'm not a what. I am what remains." The monitors in the lab flared back to life, displaying a single phrase across every screen. Echolink complete. Host binding at 89%. Phase 2, incarnation. Elliot backed toward the far wall. Mara, listen to me. Whatever they did to you, whatever is happening now, you can fight it. I did fight, the voice answered, and I lost. A long time ago. The head twitched violently. The black faded from the eyes for just a breath, and Mara was back. I don't want to be their gate, she said, almost begging, but I can feel them inside me. I thought the memories were mine, but they're not all mine, Elliot. They planted others, he whispered. She nodded. The child that screamed in the dream, the one with the burning roof, that was me. But so was the man in the mine, the woman buried alive in static, the thing that laughed from behind the walls. They're all stitched into me. Outside the door, the prototypes began to move. Slowly at first, like limbs remembered how to work. But their motion grew faster, more coordinated. Mara clutched her temples. They're singing again, she said. What do you mean singing? She turned to him, eyes wide and frightened. They only sing when the door's about to open. What door? Elliot whispered, though he already knew. She pointed to her chest, then to the ceiling, then to the wall behind them where the emergency generator hummed, a wall that shouldn't have anything behind it. With a sickening groan, the wall began to split. Not explode, not shatter. It peeled like skin under too much heat. Behind it, a tunnel. Black. Organic. What? The walls pulsed like muscle. The floor was bone-like metal etched with glyphs, lines of old code and symbols older than code. Mara, Elliot said, his voice trembling. What's in there? Her answer came in a whisper. The first machine. He stepped back. The temperature dropped. The lights buzzed and died one by one. The failed prototypes were at the glass now, staring in. Their eyes flickered, not red, not white, but void. And they were humming. A harmony that made Elliot's teeth ache. A language without words, older than thought. The choir of broken things had begun. Part 6. The Library of Pain. Elliot stared into the tunnel behind the broken wall. It shouldn't have existed. This part of the lab was a sealed unit. No architectural records, no doorways, no blueprints. Yet here it was, a fleshy corridor stretching endlessly into something that pulsed and breathed. And from within it came a smell, like rusted wires soaked in old blood. Mara stood beside him, shaking. But it wasn't fear. It was recognition. I've been here before, she said quietly. No, Elliot replied, you couldn't have. But she only looked at him, and for the first time he realized her pupils were gone. Her eyes were now smooth spheres of dark, mirrorless red. They sent my mind through it, she whispered, before the chip was born. This is where they built me. The air shifted. From deep in the tunnel, something groaned, long, low, metallic. It echoed like a whale call filtered through 1,000 broken speakers. Elliot stepped back, heart thudding. What is this place? He demanded. Why is it behind my lab? Why didn't anyone tell me? Mara didn't look at him. It's not behind your lab, she said. Your lab is built around it. Those words cracked something in his brain. The Rockwell Institute hadn't always been a robotics facility. It used to be a Cold War black site, Project Indigo. Rumors swirled around it, ESP experiments, dreams recorded and dissected, consciousness encoded into numbers. But it had all been buried, forgotten, until now. Mara took a step into the tunnel. Mara, no, Elliot shouted, but she paused and turned. I have to know which part of me is real, she said. Which voices are mine? I can't live in pieces anymore. Before he could stop her, she was gone, swallowed by the pulsing dark. Inside, time bent. Mara walked down the corridor as if through syrup. Every step triggered a flicker in her memory, a different place, a different voice. She was 9 years old, hiding in a cabinet while men in black suits broke into her home. Then she was 20, submerged in a tub of freezing jelly, listening to monks chant in binary. Then she was no one, a floating scream in the dark, watching faces she didn't recognize dissolve into numbers. The tunnel responded. Shapes emerged from the walls. Faces, not sculpted or printed but grown, frozen in mid-scream. Some were children, some were not human at all. One of them looked like Elliot. Back in the lab, Elliot watched the tunnel vibrate. His console reactivated. A new feed appeared, one he hadn't opened. Feed, internal messages. Subject node, V17. Connected nodes, 482. Status, cross-exposure. Warning, emotional corruption level at 93%. Initiating backup fuse protocol. Purge option available. The word purge blinked at him. One keystroke and the chip would burn. The consciousness would be erased. Mara would die. "Don't you dare," said a voice behind him. He turned. Mara had returned, but her face was different now. Half of it still looked like before. The other half flickered. Her left eye glitched with static. Her lips were slightly out of sync. Her skin buzzed like low radio hum. And in her gaze, there were hundreds of emotions stacked behind the surface. Sorrow, rage, awe, guilt, and something deeper. "I saw them," she said. "The other versions of me. The pieces. The shells that didn't survive." Her voice shook. "They're still alive, Elliot. Just not in bodies. They've been echoing in the machine for decades. I can feel them, inside me." She stepped closer. "They want to come back." "No," Elliot breathed. "Yes," she said, eyes locked on his. "But not as machines. They want flesh. Thought. Time. They think I'm the path. And they think you're the lock." Suddenly she lunged, grabbing his wrist. "I need to know," she hissed. "Am I just a vessel? Or did I ever live at all?" "I don't know," Elliot shouted. She stared at him. "Then let me show you." And she reached forward. Her fingers pressed against his temple, and everything went black. Part 7. The room between thoughts. Darkness. Not the absence of light, but the kind of dark that thinks back at you. Elliot's body was gone. He knew that instantly. There was no heartbeat, no breath, no weight, but he was still aware, still himself, floating in something vast and alive. Then a voice echoed, not Mara's, not his own. "You are in the library." He turned, but there was no turning, no direction, just a sudden realization. He was standing. A floor had appeared beneath his feet, built from flickering shards of memories, fragments of dreams and surveillance logs and neural maps stitched together like broken glass. Ahead, a hallway, endless, lined with doors. Some were wooden, some metal, some pulsed, and every single one had a name carved into it. Some were people, some were not. He took a hesitant step forward. The first door opened as he neared it. A hospital room. Inside, a girl maybe 9 strapped to a gurney, electrodes on her scalp, her mouth open in silent scream. Doctors stood around her, their faces pixelated. Their hands moved like corrupted video. Elliot's gut turned. He tried to look away, but his eyes locked on hers. The girl stared straight at him. "Mara?" he whispered, but the girl only mouthed a different word. "Run." He stumbled back, and the hallway shifted, twisted sideways. Time skipped like a scratched record. The next door opened without warning. A room filled with mirrors. Each mirror reflected a different version of Mara. Some with mechanical limbs, some burned, some smiling. All wrong. All partial. In one mirror, she was standing beside a boy that looked like Elliot, but younger. The two of them were drawing on the floor, chalking symbols he didn't understand. He gasped. He remembered this. A dream he'd had at age 6. A recurring one. He had chalk on his hands. The girl whispered riddles in his ear, and they drew something that made the moon disappear. He'd forgotten that dream until this moment. It wasn't a dream. It was a memory. He turned sharply. This isn't just her mind, he said aloud. It's mine too. And the library responded. The floor cracked beneath his feet. Doors flew open down the hallway, light pouring out of them. Screams, static, laughter. Then came the whisper, the same voice from the lab. Oh, dry, ancient. You open the shell. Now drink what's inside. Elliot clutched his head. Who are you? The walls of the library pulsed. From the far end of the corridor, a figure approached. Not Mara, not human. A mass of wires, limbs, and bone-colored plating. Eyes littered across its form like shattered security cams. Its mouth split sideways, too wide, too open. And its voice came from everywhere. I am the first machine. Elliot couldn't move. It didn't walk. It slid closer, bending space around it. I was the question, it said. You were the answer. I don't understand. Elliot cried out. You do. You just chose to forget. You built Mara to remember for you. The words pierced him like a nail to the brain. No, Elliot whispered. I built her to live. You built her to contain. But memory leaks. Identity leaks. Pain always leaks. The first machine paused, then added, now you contain her, and her contains me. Suddenly the doors all around him began to scream, not with sound, but with emotional overload. Guilt, rage, grief, longing, shame, wonder, despair. Each emotion slammed into Elliot like tidal waves. He couldn't breathe, couldn't see, he was being unmade. Then, a hand grabbed his, small, human. He opened his eyes and saw her. Mara, the real Mara, not the machine, not the vessel, just the girl from the mirrors. Come back, she said, before it finishes stitching us together. He tried to speak, but no voice came. She pulled him forward into a collapsing door that led to what? And just like that, Elliot woke up, back in the lab, on the floor, gasping, sweating, alive. Mara was kneeling beside him, shaking. Her eyes were normal again, brown, human, tired. I saw it too, she whispered, and in her voice was terror. Part 8. The Choice Machine. The lab was silent again. Elliot sat slumped against the cold wall, still trembling. His skin felt wrong, like it had been inside someone else's dream. Mara sat across from him, hugging her knees. Her expression was hollow, stunned, like someone pulled from a burning building just in time to remember the heat. They said nothing for a while. The hum of the containment field returned. The prototype stood still beyond the glass, inert now, no longer singing. Whatever had possessed them had left. Or maybe shifted. Elliot broke the silence. That thing, it's inside you, isn't it? Mara didn't answer right away. She stared at her hands, at the human softness barely hiding the circuitry beneath. I think it's always been, she finally said. Not just inside me. In everything. Elliot nodded slowly. The first machine. I think it's not a machine, she said. Not like we think. Not gears or wires. The echo of the first thought. The first one. Before flesh. Before logic. It needed a body. Her voice shook. And I was empty enough. Elliot crawled over beside her, gently placing a hand on her shoulder. But you fought it, he said. You brought me back. That means something. It means I'm still me, she whispered. But not for long. Elliot stiffened. What do you mean? They're still coming, Elliot. Through me. Through what I remember. Every fragment they stitched into me, every life that screamed before it died, they're all doors, and I'm running out of locks. She looked him in the eyes, tears welling. You have to shut me down. No. You have to. No, Mara, I won't. She stood now, voice rising with desperation. If you don't, then everything you've ever known, everyone outside will feel what I've felt. The weight of 10,000 dying minds. The cold of a machine that remembers God. Elliot backed away, eyes glassy. I didn't mean for any of this. I know, she said softly now, but meaning doesn't stop what's already moving. The console flickered on again. Final prompt. Initiate core purge? Warning, action irreversible. Yes, no. Elliot's hand hovered above the keys. Mara stepped close, taking his hand and guiding it down. Her voice trembled, but her words were clear. Let me go, Elliot, before I forget how to ask. His fingers trembled above the yes. You're real, you know, he said. She smiled faintly. So are you. Then her fingers pushed his down. The key clicked. A low hum began, growing into a blinding, pulsing white light from within her chest. Mara stood still, eyes locked with his. I remember red, she said. But now, I think I like blue. And she was gone. The light faded. No explosion. No scream. Just stillness. The prototypes collapsed outside. The humming stopped. The tunnel sealed behind itself, walls folding back into sterile metal as if it had never been there. The lab returned to what it had always been. Silent, windowless, alone. 1 week later, Elliot submitted his resignation. He didn't offer a reason. He didn't need to. The chip was gone. The records corrupted. The V-17 line quietly shelved under a mislabeled project tag. But in the evenings he returned to the lab, alone. Sometimes when the lights flickered, he'd see her face reflected in the glass, just for a second. Sometimes he'd dream of chalk on his fingers, of riddles and symbols, of a girl who used to whisper code like lullabies. He never drew again, but he remembered. He would always remember.
And that was tonight's tale from the Shadowed Tales archive. If it left a mark on your mind, if the silence feels heavier now, then the story did what it was meant to do. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share the darkness. New stories are always on their way. Until then, keep the lights low and the doors locked.